What's going on, man? It's your boy Jay Holley, and we are back with another episode of Unfiltered with Jesse Holley. Thank you. You are far too kind. You could have been anywhere in the world, but I am so glad that you are here with me. I am Jesse Holley, the sports talk equivalent of Braille. People feel me when I speak. You guys know what you got to do. Hit the like, subscribe button, hit the notification button, tell a friend to tell a friend. Put me all in your group chats. I'm not going to keep telling y'all. Put me in your group chat. Put me in the work email. How about that? Put me in the work email. Blast it out to everybody at the job. Let them know Unfiltered with Jesse Holley is where they need to be. Also, follow me on Twitter or X or whatever it is, at Mr. Fourth and Long. Make sure you follow Fanatics Views. Also, on Instagram, on YouTube, you can hit us up on all the places where you get your podcast from. Apple, Spotify, we're all there. Unfiltered with Jesse Holley. Make sure you go and make that famous. Leave a comment if you like. Hit the 5-star. Leave a comment. Do all that good stuff. All right, you guys know how I like to get down. I like to get my motivation at the beginning because let's be honest, some of you are not going to be here at the end because I'm not for everybody, and that's okay. Not mad at you. Just actually stay around 15 minutes. Just, and if that doesn't work for you, just find another episode, man. We got 79 of these things, man. So make sure you do what you have to do. All right, here's the motivation for the day. I may have used this one before. I don't remember. Memory's going a little bad. Not CTE, just getting a little old. And this one comes from somewhere where you probably shouldn't be finding stuff if you're a Tar Heel. This one comes from Jay Billis. But I like this one. So I give the fact that he went to that school in Durham a little bit of a pass. And the words from Jay Billis are such as, if you're not careful, you can start to think it's routine. Don't take special for granted. If you're not careful, you can start to think it's routine. Don't take special for granted. Now, you can take that in a multitude of ways. Sometimes you can have friendship. It can be a relationship. And you think it's just routine that that person, he or she, whoever they may be, it's just routine. And forget the fact that it's special. It can be a gift that you have, whether it's speaking, whether it's art, whether it's whatever it is. I never want you to think that it's routine. I want you to always be able to take a moment and pause and realize what you're doing or the gift that you may have, that it is special. Because we do things over and over and over and over again, and it does become routine. And sometimes we miss the mark in understanding that our gift is special, that you are special, that what we're able to do in this world is special. I've told you guys this before. One of the things that my therapist and we talk about at times, he calls it just, I'm nice. And at times you have to remind yourself that you're nice. I'm nice. We're nice. And not in the sense of, kind and caring. Yeah. No, meaning like I'm nice. Like I'm the dopest one out here. Like I do this. Like when it comes to me, there is no comparison. I am top 2 and I ain't number 2. Like sometimes you got to have that understanding. Don't let this thing become routine. Don't let your nice become routine. No, make sure it is special. Make sure it's kept special. Make sure you remind folks that is special. At times when I'm talking to people and they'll say to me sometimes, they go, oh yeah, I saw your little podcast. I go, take the little off that. We're not going to diminish nothing I do to being little. We're going to speak about what I do in a special way. See, because sometimes people can see you do so many things in your life, they just take it for granted. Oh, this is a little podcast. Whoa. Hold your horses now. No, you will not speak about anything that I have to do with it. Just some little afterthought. Nah, you're going to put the right energy on the things that I'm doing. Put the right energy on the things that you're doing. Don't let folks hit you with the little nothing. No, everything that I do is big. All right? So if you're not careful, you can start to take it as routine. But don't take special for granted. All right, man, let's get into this thing. We got a big game this week. Cowboys versus Eagles, division rivals, 3:30 at AT&T Stadium. The Cowboys have not won a home game this year, which is a weird thing because for the past couple years, they've been like on fire at home. But times change and things change, and the Cowboys have not gotten a victory at home this season. Now, normally, how I used to feel about division games, whether it's the Eagles, whether it's Washington, whether it's the Giants, I usually have the feeling of division game, throw records out the window. Throw all of that out the window because when you play your division rival, it just means more. It means something. I got to admit, I don't have that same feeling coming into this particular game. Part of the reason is already how the Cowboys have been playing, both offensively and defensively, but the injury bug has hit the most important position on any football team. Not just the Cowboys, but on any football team. The injury bug has hit the quarterback. Dak Prescott went out of the Falcons game with a hamstring injury, and some thought that he quit. We'll get into that later on because they had to go back and eat crow and backpedal on that. But right now, reports are saying that the hamstring injury is one that has a partially tear off the bone. The hamstring, I guess, I made a joke during the game because we talked about him running more all last week. He gets to the game and finally takes off and runs, and he hurts his hamstring. And if you remember, there was a meme of a guy back in the day right here locally in DFW. It's a turkey leg dude. And he would always go around in his truck and sell these turkey legs. And he'd always say, he would open them up and he'd shake that turkey leg. And he'd always say, if it don't fall off the bone, it's free. And he'd shake that turkey leg and the meat come falling right off that bone. And I had jokingly put that out on Twitter Sunday when it happened, not knowing that a couple of days later it will come to fruition that the meat has actually partially falling off the bone for Dak Prescott. Now, they have not ruled him as far as IR just yet. He's been getting second and third and fourth opinions. And honestly, if you hunt around long enough and you got enough bread, you can find a doctor that's certified somewhere in this country that will give you, that will clear you, or a program that will clear you enough to go and play. Remember many years ago when I think it was Jason Witten, and he had the ruptured spleen or something like that. And he couldn't find a doctor to clear him, and he went around and found a doctor in New York that would clear him enough to play. So again, if you got enough money and enough resources, you can definitely find someone that gets you cleared to play. But Dak right now has not quit on his football team compared to what some other former NFL players may think. He's getting second and third opinion because at times NFL football players, our brains sometimes work a little bit differently, and our bodies heal a little bit differently. You got to understand, he's going to get around the clock treatment, and right now they're kind of thinking about whether it's surgery or not surgery, and what is the time frame of healing within that process. Because let's be honest, Dak wants to be out there. He wants to go out there and play quarterback for this particular team, no matter what the record is. He made a commitment to this team. And I think he believes, and I believe, that he wants to fulfill that commitment. And if he can go out there and play, he wants to be able to do it. Because if you go on short-term IR, no matter how you feel, you must miss at least 4 games. So for Dak, he still has a feeling of hope that, maybe they can get a couple wins between now and then, that maybe he can come back and play in a couple of weeks. I don't know what his total thinking is, but I do know that he is in the process of trying to get second and third opinions. But the Cowboys are very close. They're very close when you think about it to kind of being mathematically out of this thing. They got a couple big division games coming up in the near future. Of course, Philly being one of them this Sunday, and then they'll have Washington in a couple of days. Right now, the Cowboys currently sit 13th in the NFC. So outside looking in, if the playoffs ended today, they would not be in the playoffs. But, there's always the winner of the division has an opportunity to make the playoffs. So there's still hope out for that. Also on the injury front, Zach Martin has missed his second day of practice. He's dealing with a shoulder injury. Poor Zach Martin, man. Like, this dude he's holding on. He's trying to hold on the best that he possibly can. But father time and these injuries, and the body just can only take so much wear and tear and beating before it gives. And so that CeeDee Lamb, who has a sprained AC joint, he's done some limited things at practice. Still no question, no answer on whether or not he will play this Sunday. If you take my opinion that he tries to play, but it's going to be, one, pain tolerance. How much pain can he take in this shoulder? Two, does it hurt his range of motion? Because if you're trying to throw passes, especially from a backup quarterback who you really don't have a lot of chemistry with, if those passes are high and you really can't lift your shoulder up to get them, or you've now turned to body catching when you're a natural hands catcher. So there's a couple things that can be in play in that particular thing. Pain tolerance, of course. What does it feel like to be hit and you catch a pass? And sometimes you're not always able to brace yourself on the way down. You catch a pass and someone wraps you up from behind, and now your arms are stuck at the side. You're holding the football. That's how he hurt his shoulder the first time, and you fall on that shoulder again. So a lot of things happening there. For those of you who are in the camp of, we should just go and play Trey Lance, that's not happening this week, at least not to start. Now, what happens in that game, if Cooper Rush happens to get hurt, maybe you have no what to see Trey Lance. But right now, they're going with Cooper Rush. He's going to be the starter for you in this game. Micah Parsons, who has missed the last 4 weeks with a high ankle sprain, he has been back in practice. So there's a possibility that he may be back in this game. Now, the thing for Micah, yes, it will be great having Micah back, but Micah's conditioning will be poor at best. While he is a freak athlete, while he is someone who has the ability to be a game wrecker and a game changer, the things that Micah really, really depend upon is his speed and his quickness, his get off, his burst, his ability to get from point A to point B in lightning speed. Now, coming off a high ankle sprain, one of the things that he was not able to do in any capacity was run to keep his conditioning up. And I know they have those machines where you're talking about like you're doing with the arms. That's always been a load of bull to me. So Micah, even if he is to play in this game, he is back at practice. And I don't know Micah personally, but as a player, he seems like a guy who's always trying to find a way to get out there in the field. But his conditioning won't be where it needs to be. You miss 4 weeks, you miss a little over a month, and not being able to run and condition, you're going to be tired. You're going to be tired. So maybe, using him on third downs or necessary pass downs. And a lot of times, pitch count is a lot different in NFL and versus NBA or Major League. Because sometimes if a guy is good enough to go out there and play, he goes and plays. And sometimes you don't even know that he didn't win the game. You just look up and he's in the game. Excuse me. So will he be on the pitch count? Probably. But once he gets in there, he's going to try to go out there and be the best that he very well can be. But when you start looking this thing down, breaking this thing down, look at the Cowboys defensively. And they have been really, 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 really banged up with injuries. Of course, Sam Williams is gone, and Nealon is gone, and Deron Bland is still working with the rehab group, so he won't be playing. Tank is still out. So you're talking about a lot of players on this team banged up and hurt and injured on the defensive side of the ball. And you couple the injuries with the lack of production that you got from guys like Mozzie Smith, like you got from Donovan Wilson. And it's tough. And you try to find ways to look at this game and go, all right, where is a win? Where can these guys go get a win? And when you look at the Cowboys, they are either dead last or near the bottom portion of the league. And you name a defensive category. Yards given up, first downs given up, touchdowns given up, rushing yards given up. Not so much passing yards because a lot of teams don't even have to pass on them because they just run the ball so effectively. Time of possession they're giving up. Broken tackles, missed tackles they're giving up. They're at the bottom of the league in pressures created. A lot of their guys on their defensive line are rated the worst in the league, whatever metrics that you want to use, PFF, whatever it is. I saw a stat the other day, and it's not me picking on him, but Mozzie Smith graded out the last game somewhere around like 27%. 27% is what he graded out. Like that's tough. That's tough. And I listen and I look at Mike Zimmer at some of these press conferences that he does, and boy, does he look defeated. He looks like a man who doesn't have the answers. Because no matter what he wants to do, I gave you guys a stat a couple of weeks ago, and I told you that even with a loaded box, meaning the Cowboys bring more guys into the box than the opposing team has to block the guys that they have in the box. And teams are still have a 52% success rate when they run against the Cowboys in a loaded box. And they look at the success rate as being like 4 and 4.5 yards per carry that they do it. So the Cowboys are still loading the box, and teams are still having success with them loading the box. And so when you start looking at things like that, where you're blinking run blitzes and you're loading the blocks and doing all that stuff, and people are still having success, you find yourself stuck. And that's where the Cowboys are right now defensively. And they're going up against one of the hottest offenses in the league right now. This Philadelphia offense right now, I would say, is probably one of the hottest offenses in the league. Not necessarily when it comes to points, but just as their ability to come together and play well. I'll give you an example. There's been 9 weeks that have been played in this season. And every week you have the AFC and the NFC offensive and defensive player of the week. There's been 9 of them. There's been 9 offensive players of the week in the NFC. 3 times has it been Saquon Barkley. Week 1, week 7, week 9. A third of the season, Saquon Barkley has played to a point where he was considered the best offensive player in the NFC. And when you look at what he's doing from a running back perspective, he's averaging over, I think, 125 yards a game. And what he does for this Eagles offense is he stabilizes it. He gives them a legitimate run threat who can run in any place on the field. You want him in the A-gaps? He can run in the A-gaps. He can get ugly, tough yards in the A-gap. You want him in the B-gaps? He can run in the B-gaps, get ugly, tough yards in the B-gap. He understands and has the vision to be able to jump cut from the A-gap to the B-gap, or jump cut from the B-gap back to the A-gap. He has the ability to do that. You want their guys to run outside. You want to run some Jones stuff, some sweep stuff, some toss stuff. Saquon Barkley can do that. And then what else he does well is he's a fantastic pass catcher out of the backfield. You can run screens with him. He had a play last week against the Jaguars where he lined up in the backfield, basically kind of ran like a wheel route on one of the nickel or safeties and caught it over the shoulder, corner of the end zone, get both feet down, touchdown. Like, this is what you get with Saquon Barkley. So it's taking the pressure off of off of Jalen Hurts to have to be the doer of everything, have to be the quarterback of everything, has to be the runner of everything. He has to tote the ball, get the ball to Saquon. Right now, this Eagles offensive line is ranked 9th in PFF rankings as one of the best top 10 offensive line. You have arguably in Lane Johnson. I'm trying to think there. I don't know if there's been a better right tackle in the National Football League as good as Lane Johnson in the last 10 years, 15 years. Like he when he's all said and done, he's gonna put that jacket on and be in Canton, Ohio, and they'll have a bus, and he'll be able to go up there and do a speech because he'll be a Hall of Famer. And this offensive line is good. They run a lot of 12 personnel. One back, 2 tight end sets. And then they have their receivers. Now, Devontae Smith has missed a couple days of practice this week. Excuse me. He missed a couple days of practice this week with a hamstring injury. Now, I'm not saying it's the falling off the bone hamstring, but if they don't have him, that's a plus for the Cowboys. Because having Devontae Smith, having A.J. Brown, Dallas Goedert is still there, but he hasn't been as effective this year. But they have 2 stud wide receivers. Like Devontae Smith, on any other roster, probably he could be a number 1. Like he has number 1 ability. Even though he's the number 2 for these guys, he has number 1 ability, and he's fast. He runs good route, has really good hands. It can make your life a miserable hell with what he can do in the pass game. Now, the Cowboys offensively, I remember Cooper Rush when he had to start a couple years ago for Dak Prescott, and I thought to myself, like, oh, everybody's like, oh, he's been 5-1. Remember the last time that he started and all that other kind of good stuff. I want to inform you, ladies and gentlemen, that is not this. That team then was made up of a different quality of cats. That was when Zeke was good and Tony Pollard was good and the offensive line was good, and you had a good Zach Martin, and you had a really good Tyron Smith, and you had good center, like you had a good offensive line. Your defense was top 10 at that time when you were creating turnovers, and Trayvon Diggs was picking people off, and Micah was creating havoc and wreaking havoc and making backfields a nightmare for quarterbacks and so on and so forth. That defense was different back then. So I just look at this team offensively and I think to myself, I don't know what they're going to do. And I've been trying to put my mind and wrap my mind around a game plan. And the thing that I could come up with is you kind of got to actually play how the Eagles play. You have to go a lot of 12 personnel. 1, 2. The 1 back, 2 tight ends, 2 receivers. Or you got to go 13 personnel, 1 back, 3 tight ends, 1 wide receiver. Or you got to go 22 personnel, 2 backs, 2 tight ends, 1 wide receiver. You have to find a way to get more guys up there because your offensive line has not been well. And you'll have one player on the offensive line play well, and then the other 4 won't play so well. And it's been rotational chairs in there because, last week you'll say, hey, Terrence Steele probably finally played well. But Zach Martin didn't play as well, or Tyler Smith didn't play as well, or Cooper Beebe didn't play as well. And what you're facing this week with Philadelphia is you're facing those Georgia boys. You're facing Jordan Davis and Carter, and then you'll face Sweat on the outside and Huff. And say what you want, people look at the Cowboys now, especially their offensive line, as food. Right? Last week, they played the Atlanta Falcons. The Atlanta Falcons had 6 sacks total on the year and got 3 in that game. They haven't been able to get pressure and sacks all season. They had 6 sacks total. That's like less than 1 sack a game. They got 3 on the Cowboys in one game. Philadelphia in the last 6 games coming off the bye for them. I think their bye was in week 6. They lead the league in sacks, turnovers. That unit up front has like 51 tackles. They're playing well. So for the Cowboys, the name of the game for the Cowboys has to be bring bigger bodies in to protect, get the ball out of the hands of Cooper Rush quickly. Slants, hitches. If you're going to run the ball, you're not going to be able to do it your traditional way. I just don't think that you have the facilities to go up against this Eagles defense and have a successful running game. And you know, the biggest thing for the Cowboys is your inability to have any type of success on first down. So what you don't want to do for your quarterback who's, you know, and think about this, Cooper Rush really hasn't gotten any snaps in a long time. Because if you remember, in training camp and in the preseason, the Cowboys were hell-bent on giving Trey Lance all the possible reps he can get because they wanted to see what he was going to be as a player, and they kind of already knew what Cooper Rush was, so they limited him from having any of the preseason reps and gave like 95% of them to Trey Lance. Now, I know he's got some practice reps, what little practice that he was able to get, but he didn't get any seasonal reps. So now he's being thrusted into that. I think the best thing that the Cowboys can do is get the ball out of his hands quickly, throw the ball to the tight end, try to establish a run game, but it's going to be difficult if you get down in this game quickly. If you get down in this game early in this game like you've been most of the year, now you have to abandon the run game and you have to go purely into the passing game. And Philadelphia already, they don't blitz. Vic Fangio, he's not a guy who's going to be blitzing this squad that doesn't blitz. They play with their front four. They drop a bunch of guys in covers. Now, that has always been a thing that has plagued the Cowboys, or at least Dak Prescott. And so if they keep that same approach, which I think they will, because they're playing well. They're playing well in the back end with their coverage, and they have to make they have to make Cooper Rush sift through all of that nonsense to make plays. They're just saying we're gonna bet on 2 things. We're gonna bet on 1, you not able to hold up this blocking, and we're gonna get pressure to you, and then 2, if we don't get to you, we're going to bet that you're going to make a mistake before you get a touchdown. Whether that be, you know, on first or second down, now you get to a 3rd and long, and you can't complete it and keep the drive alive, and now you have to punt it. They're going to just play the percentages. This is, you know, the Cowboys found themselves in a very difficult situation. They do. You're just not playing. You're not playing a good brand of football right now. And you haven't been for weeks. The Cowboys just aren't good enough right now. Coaching-wise, player-wise, schematic-wise. And I know that you're probably saying, I don't want to hear this. This is not what I came here for. But I got to give it to you real. And if I'm being completely honest, this could be a game where, and you guys tell me if you think I'm wrong, Nick Sirianni is, some may say classless, some may say an airhead, some may say an a-hole, some may say arrogant. Like when people outside of Philadelphia, and if we're being honest, some of you Philadelphia fans say a lot of things about Nick Sirianni negatively. About the way that he acts. Remember a couple weeks ago, he was like talking to his own fans. He has this smug look about him. Like he just looks like he has a punchable face. Not that I condone violence, but I understand it. He has a punchable face. On top of that, you know, Kellen Moore wasn't welcome here anymore. He hadn't forgotten about that. And Mike McCarthy didn't want him. He didn't want Kellen here. He didn't want Kellen calling the plays. He didn't want Kellen doing any of that. So between those two, this could be one of those type of games where they can almost pull a Ben Johnson and Dan Campbell and try to embarrass you. At home, in front of your own fans, they want to run the score up. They might want to beat you by 40. Like, that's a legit scenario. And if you watch the Eagles watch them last week, they almost cost them the game because of Nick Sirianni's just uber aggressiveness, going for it on fourth down, going for 2 points, not kicking the field goals and all this other nonsense. They're going to try to come in here and put belt to tail on the Cowboys. Not only because it's a division game, not only because the Cowboys are ripe for a whooping, but just because they're a-holes. And I can't say that I'm mad at them, because if I had a chance to put a whooping on my rivalry, I would want to do the same thing. I would want to set the tone and set a statement to the rest of the NFC East. We daddy. And I don't know if that means, you get that credit off of beating the Cowboy team currently constructed, but I don't think there would be nothing more that Nick Sirianni would want than to beat the Cowboys at home by 40. I just firmly believe that. So, I think the Cowboys will be outmanned, outmatched in this particular game. Kellen Moore right now was using motion at an all-time high for this team. They're like 18th in the league with motion. That's pre-snap, at snap, motion. That's one of the things that hurt the Cowboys defense, the teams that do a lot of motion, and they do that. Kellen Moore looks completely different. Like, he's woken up. I'm not saying he woke, but he ain't asleep no more about how and when to run these plays. So prediction for me, man, don't look good for the Cowboys. I don't think the Cowboys win the home game this Sunday. I think they take a major L, and they lose 40-17. I think the Eagles put a 40 burger up and would probably try to put a 50 burger up. My gut feeling. All right, man. Let's get around the sports world. Some very strong, harsh, maybe a little bit misinformed words were spoken over the weekend. I told you guys earlier that Dak Prescott went out of the Falcons game, and Mo said he had a hamstring injury. Now, Monday morning, and I haven't addressed this on Twitter. I don't want to address it here, but I know that some of you want to hear my thoughts about it. On a dying show on FS1 called The Facility, that's the show with Maniacho and James Jones and one of my football goats, and I'm now, what's the quarterback's name? Shoot. I just drew an absolute blank. The Facility. Chase. What's his name? Chase Daniels, one of my football goats. And the reason he's one of my football goats because I think Chase Daniels has like 11 career NFL starts, played in the league for like over 10 years, made a bunch of money to do nothing. That's GOAT status to me. Make tens and 20s millions of dollars. I think he made maybe $40 million over his career, whatever it was. And he has like 9 starts. I love it. Eddie, you beat the system, buddy. You beat the system, and you were a backup for all these years, and you made some great money, and that's why you are one of my football goats, because you fleeced the system for so long. There is no better job than being a backup quarterback in the National Football League. You are not required to do very much. You make a good living. And even if they ask you to start, you're not even expected to win. If you win, it's a bonus. But if you get to the right coach and hit with the right team, you will have a job. $41 million he made over his career. $41 million. And threw 9 touchdown passes. So my kind of GOAT right there. You guys can have the Tom Brady's and the Patrick Mahomes of the world. Have those guys. Those guys are fine. Those would be your GOATs. Guys like Chase, GOATs to me. It's how you finesse the system. But anyway, this show, the facility with James Jones and Maniacho and Chase and Shady McCoy. And we all know that Shady is ill-informed and unintelligent and makes horrible takes. And Acho is he's the puppet master for these guys. Chase gives you a little bit of perspective because he actually has a good take. But normally James Jones is the guy who gives you some solid takes, very, very rational in his thinking. Well, he came out early Monday morning before any of the MRIs were done and any of the other things were done on Dak Prescott, and he had the audacity to say, oh, because I've had a hamstring injury and the way that he fell or the way that it didn't look as severe, and I'm a receiver and I played this game and I muscled through some hamstring injuries and he's a quarterback and this and that and the third and all that. And he had the audacity. He had the unmitigated gall to say that Dak Prescott quit on his teammates. Now, when you make comments like that, you gotta have some solid information. You just can't come, shooting from the hip with allegations like that. And of course, it caught wind and it was all over social media. It was on the national networks and it caught fire. And then the MRI came out. And in fact, James Jones, who told everybody that he played this game and he had hamstring injuries and he saw how he got up and it didn't look that way. And come to find out, James Jones, in fact, did not ever have a hamstring injury like this. This hamstring injury was one that was a partial tear of the meat, the hamstring meat from the bone. So not only was James Jones loud and aggressive in his take, but he was dead wrong. I mean, dead wrong. And then, he tried to have a Twitter apology and Acho, being the puppet master that he is, he hyped it up on Twitter and said, no, James. You can't get on Twitter and apologize. You said it on TV. You got to apologize on TV. And then that got traction. And of course, when it all came about, James Jones got on the show and he made a half-hearted apology because the words that I apologize never came out of his mouth. Instead, James Jones, with maybe a little bit too much pride, a little too much ego, after the MRI had come out, after the results had come out, and he found out and he learned that yes, he jumped the gun, and yes, he was loud and wrong, and that Dak did not have a normal hamstring injury, that Dak did not quit on his football team, nor has Dak actually went on IR yet, because as we sit today, Dak is not on IR. Oh no. All these things became evident to James Jones. And instead of him standing up there like a man and uttering the words, I was wrong, I apologize, because you publicly ripped a man and you called a man's courage and his fight and his will and his character into question. And instead of James Jones standing up to the world and being as boisterous and loquacious as he was when he made the allegations that Dak Prescott quit, he sat up there almost in his timid and quiet voice, and he uttered the words, "My bad. That was my bad." And to that, James Jones, I say bull-ish. What a coward of you. Because you jumped off the porch. You jumped out the window with the allegation. I mean, and you were strong in what you were saying with no information. And yes, James Jones, you are a former NFL player. Damn good one, might I add. But Mike McCarthy is your former coach. You could have easily reached out to Mike McCarthy and asked him, "Hey, coach, what is the prognosis on Dak Prescott?" You could have reached out to many people. Your host, Manny Acho, used to work for DallasCowboys.com. He has connections to people who cover this team at a much more hands-on rate than you. Could have reached out to them. Could have just pumped your brakes a little bit before you went all puffy, tough guy talk. And called that man out and said that he quit on his team. That's and especially coming from someone who was in the fraternity of football players, to say that a man has quit on his football team, some tough allegations. And you said them with such ease and such matter of fact, and you were loud and you were wrong. And instead of you being a man and standing up on national TV like you were when you made the allegations and simply uttering the words, "I was wrong. I'm sorry. I apologize." You acted as if, I don't want to even say that, but you acted like a punk and only could muster up, "My bad." My bad. No. That ain't acceptable. That ain't acceptable. My bad? You might want to go back and play that clip back about how you were screaming and hollering that man quit on his team, on his brothers, on the guys that he's in the foxhole with. You might want to go back and just see how much veracity that you had and how much aggression that you had in your tone. Man, let your apology be that as boastful as that allegation was. See, and this is the problem that we do in life. When the allegations come, we make them loud and we put them in bold print and we say them with such emphasis. Oh, but when someone's acquitted, you write it in small print. So my bad to me, James Jones, is completely unacceptable. It makes you look like a punk. To me, it makes you look like a coward. It makes me not even want to hear anything that ever comes out of your mouth again. And I get the show that must go on. I get the production of it all, and that you guys have to drive ratings, so you say these invalid things. But when you're wrong, come on that same show. And as the young people say, keep that same energy, my boy. It's only right. All right, moving on from that nonsense. Mid-season awards. I found this story from Bill Barnwell, and we're at the mid-season point right now. And you can also leave your comments right there. We read the comments and we see what you guys. So, if you agree with Bill Barnwell or not, or myself or not, here's where a lot of these awards are right now. And I'm going to do Coach of the Year. I'm going to do Defensive Player of the Year, Offensive Player of the Year, and where we stand right now at MVP. And so Bill Barnwell, he went Coach of the Year first. And right now, this has been a really good football season in my personal opinion. But Bill Barnwell has right now for your coach of the year, here's his top 3 candidates. In no particular order. This is not 1, 2, or 3 or 3, 2, or 1, but he has Kevin O'Connell, the Vikings head coach. One of the things that Bill Barnwell says in this is that O'Connell has gotten significant credit for building an efficient offense around a journeyman quarterback, Sam Darnold. And I think that's true. Sam Darnold has been around this league, and he has been ridiculed and ostracized. And I think he's got with Kevin O'Connell, and they have given him a good offensive line, a decent running game, and of course, having to throw the ball to Justin Jefferson doesn't help a quarterback. But, Sam Darnold, who's bounced around for a while, I got to say this, though. One thing that I think about when I think about the Vikings that we may not necessarily see right now, and he took a major hit when he was in Miami. Brian Flores and what he's been able to do with that defense. Now, I know that he is not the head coach, but I think he's doing enough in this season so far. And depending on where the Vikings end up at the end of this year, I think the name Brian Flores, and I know he took a hit when Tua came out and he talked about how Brian Flores told him every single day that he sucked. And that's not funny, but he took a major PR hit with that one. But right now, he's playing some good football, and he's helped this team significantly. And the Vikings are sitting there at 6-2 right now, and that NFC North is a tough division right now when you look at the way that they're playing football. The second coach in the coach of the year, according to Bill Barnwell, is Dan Quinn. Dan Quinn took the head coaching job at the Washington Commanders, and he has turned that place around, man. He has done a wonderful job in hiring the right people, putting the right people in position. But he went and got guys like Bobby Wagner and Zach Ertz. And, of course, his quarterback cannot take it away that Jaden Daniels is playing some of the best football in this league. And they even made a big trade at the trade deadline, went and got cornerback from the New Orleans Saints, Marshawn Lattimore. I don't think Marshawn is what he once was, but I think sometimes we discredit football knowledge. You're going to hear me say that about a couple of guys that you may on certain teams. But a guy like Marshawn Lattimore, who probably has some skill left, he's not what he once was, the all-pro that he once was, but the knowledge of it, you see him already working with some of the guys in Commanders practice and giving up some of the game to some of those younger guys. So Dan Quinn, definitely has the Commanders. I thought the Commanders would be a good team. I thought they were a year away. I thought Dan Quinn would go there with a young quarterback, and then after a year or so, get them kind of right back into the mix of things. Well, Dan Quinn said, shut the hell up, Jesse. I'm getting these guys going right now. And currently he has, I think Washington's in first place in the NFC East. They're in the first place in the NFC East. Washington, Philadelphia, Dallas, and New York. That definitely took the league by storm, and Dan Quinn is putting some really good football out there in Washington. And the other coach that they have, and this guy seems like he's in that conversation every single year almost, talking about taking less and doing more. This coach in all his time in the National Football League has yet to have a losing season, Mike Tomlin. Mike Tomlin is in that conversation. He started out the year with Justin Fields, which I was never a fan of, and then moved over to Russell Wilson when he got fully healthy, and things are starting to pick up. They scored 63 points over their last 2 games, and another name that they have in their team that's probably going to be in the defensive year category, T.J. Watt. T.J. Watt, and Minka Fitzpatrick, and Joey Porter Jr. I mean, they have a really good nucleus in Pittsburgh, and they just added a receiver. I'm not the biggest fan of this receiver, but will he be able to help this team? Hopefully, maybe. They traded for Mike Williams. You pair him up now with George Pickens, who I think, this is my personal opinion, may have the best eye-hand coordination in the league and the strongest hands in the league. When the ball gets in George Pickens' hands, it doesn't come out. And he makes some insane catches and has some incredible body control. So you add another big-time receiver on the outside. Now Russell can throw those moon balls down the sideline to Pickens and to Williams. I hope Williams can catch it because, he's had a little bit of issue with the hands and catching these type of balls. But nonetheless, Mike Tomlin, tell me what you think. I would be remiss if I did not add my boy into the mix. MCDC, Motor City Dan Campbell. You got to put him in. I think he has to be in the mix. What he is doing right now in Detroit, he has revived an entire city and state. Like, he really has. And he's putting his team in position to do something that they've never done in franchise history. And right now, Detroit is the favorite coming out of the NFC to play in the Super Bowl. And some may even have them beating, whether that be the Chiefs or the Ravens or the Bills out of the AFC. But right now, the front runner coming out of the NFC is the Detroit Lions. So I would be remiss if I did not add my boy, Motor City Dan Campbell, who, if I decide to take on a second team and not cheer and root for the Cowboys, it would be the Lions. I just like the Lions. If I was still able to play, which I'm not, and I could pick the team that I wanted to go play for, not being a front runner, but his style fits my personality. To have that real, raw, uncut, real life brotherhood relationship, that fits who I am as a person, and I would not mind playing for Motor City Dan Campbell in Detroit. All right, Defensive Player of the Year. The names will sound the same. The names will sound the same. A lot of the names that you hear. Of course, you got guys like Chris Jones, and you got guys like Quentin Williams and Nick Bosa and Max Crosby. Those guys, it's the names that you would hear. Talk about Motor City Dan Campbell. If he did not break his leg, Aiden Hutchinson would probably have been your Defensive Player of the Year. Like, he was trending on that pace to be your Defensive Player of the Year. But who Bill Barnwell has right now on this short list of Defensive Player of the Year, of course, you know the names. Myles Garrett is one of those guys, and I know that the Browns aren't doing too well right now. Myles Garrett just came off a 3-sack game that kind of puts him back in the conversation of what he was able to do a year ago. Myles Garrett, he has done that while being double teamed on nearly 28% of his pass rush attempts on the edge, which is tied for the highest rate in the National Football League. He's ranked third in pass win rate according to Next Gen Stats. He's racked up the quick pressures on 11.6% of the pass rushing attempts. Nobody is within 2% points of Myles Garrett. And again, he does all that while being double teamed 28% of the time. TJ Watt is another one that is on this list. Bill Barnwell says Watt has been a one-man show this season. Alex Highsmith and even Nick Herbig has been excellent on the other side of the field. It's not Watt's most productive season, but he has 6.5 sacks and 14 knockdowns through 3 games. He has 10 tackles for losses, which is tied for the league with 4 forced fumbles. 3 of them was coming in the red zone and ended drives. And last but not least, this is a name that you probably didn't think you would hear, but is playing the best brand of football he's played. Trey Hendrickson. Of the Bengals. When he gets that, he always, I think he's giving up to the Lord. I hope he's giving up to the Lord, because if he is, I appreciate a man of the Lord. While they say Watt is the favorite, Trey right now leads the league in sacks, 11, and in quarterback hits, 22, 5 more than anyone else. He's tied for the number one. He's tied at number 1 with 11 tackles for loss and is ranked second in pass rush win rate behind Aiden Hutchinson. Hendrickson is 22.9 percentage points ahead of the third place Garrett. So this guy's playing some good football. And I know the Bengals haven't been record-wise playing good football. It hasn't been because of their defense. It's been because of their offense. But Joe Burrow's picking it up a little bit. So that's my Defensive Player of the Year awards. And remember, leave your comments, leave your questions and comments in the chat. Offensive Player of the Year, Justin Jefferson. Justin Jefferson right now. It says somebody else get theirs with exaggerated workload. Jefferson hasn't commanded the otherworldly target shares this season. His average 30 routes per game, which hails in comparison to Jamar Chase, 33, CD 36.5. Jefferson has been ruthlessly efficient. His 3.3 yards per route run ranks second behind Nico Collins, and more than 31% of his receptions go for 20 yards or more. He has posted a 69% catch rate when an average receiver of the same spot would have caught it 61% of the passes thrown in his direction. Number 2, and probably will win Offensive Player of the Year. You heard me mention his name before. The Cowboys have to go up against him this week. Saquon Barkley is hands down having the best season of his career. The Eagles are on pace right now to have over 600 rushes between quarterback and their running backs. That haven't happened for the Philadelphia Eagles since 1949. But Saquon right now, he is on pace to have a career-high 2,276 yards from scrimmage. He's averaging 5.9 yards per carry and has 8 touchdowns in 8 games. I told you guys before, they've had 9 NFC Player of the Weeks. He owns 3 of those in week 1, week 7, and week 9. Barkley is lights out right now, and he's a huge reason why this Philadelphia Eagles team is playing their brand of football, that good brand of football they're playing right now. But I should have told you to keep these stats up earlier, Tay. The other Offensive Player of the Year, King Henry. King Henry is number 1. Anything that has to do with rushing, pick a stat. Rushing attempts, rushing yards, rushing touchdown, longest rush, rushing average, anything that has to do with rushing the football, King Henry is first. The now 30-year-old back is producing historically significant campaign. Through 9 games, Henry has 1,000 yards rushing and 11 touchdowns. The only other back to top the round numbers of 1,000 yards and 10 rushing touchdowns through the first 9 games of the season in the past 40 years are Emmitt Smith. He did it in 1995. Terrell Davis in 1998. Sean Alexander in 2005. Oddly enough, all of those won MVP awards. Right now, that is King Henry as Defensive Player of the Year. Now, we can get into the MVP. You heard him just say King Henry should probably be in that conversation, but we all know that the MVP goes to a quarterback. And these 3 names are not mentioned in the Barnwell article as the top 3, but I would be remiss if I said Patrick Mahomes. While he hasn't had his best season, it's Patrick Mahomes. They're still 7-0. And at this rate, if they finish this year 17-0, and if they run the table and do a three-peat, I mean, what do you want to do? I mean, Patrick Mahomes should be in that conversation. Barkley should be in that conversation. He's not on this list for Bill Barnwell, but I think Saquon Barkley should be in that list. Josh Allen should be in that list, and King Henry should be in that list. This year is a lot of things happening in the National Football League, but the 3 names that he has, number 3, he has Jared Goff. I'm not mad at this. Interesting stat. Jared Goff in the last 6 games has more touchdowns, 28, than he does incompletions, 24. Think about that for a second. In the last 6 games, Jared Goff has more touchdowns, 28, than incompletions, 24. Jared Goff and his number 1 receiver, Amon-Ra St. Brown, They are 30. They have 30 completions in a row. The last time that Jared Goff has thrown an incompletion was September. We are in November. The last time that he's thrown an interception has been thrown an incompletion to Amon-Ra St. Brown. It was in September. He is second in the league in completion percentage through the first 9 games. Only one other person has had a higher completion percentage, and that was Drew Brees. He's right in there. It's Drew Brees, it's Goff, and then it was Tom Brady, I believe. But he is playing lights out football. Bill Barnwell has his second MVP candidate, rookie, Jayden Daniels. I'm not mad at that. But I think he might have to, you know what I mean? He got to do a little bit with it. He's ranked fifth. I said again, I'm not mad at it. But Bill Barnwell has him in his top 3. I don't know. I mean, I can make a case easily taking him out and putting King Henry in there. I can make a case easily putting Josh Allen, you know what I'm saying, in that conversation. I'd even argue a little bit of Saquon Barkley in that conversation. And then, of course, Lamar Jackson. Lamar is playing some really good football. And I think that people are going to have voter fatigue, kind of how they did with Jokic, right? And it was like he was supposed to win it, but they were like, well, we can't give it to him 3 times in a row because, you know, it's just not. So they gave it to Joel Embiid. And then they came right back the next year and was like, okay, he really is the best player in the league. And they gave him the MVP again. But I know that this is a regular season award, and Lamar Jackson has been playing lights out. And Bill Barnwell says, forget what Jackson has done as a runner. He doesn't even need to be mentioned to justify picking up his league MVP. It says he leads the league in passing yards per attempt, 9.3, adjusted net yards per attempt, 9.7, and touchdown to interception ratio, 20-2, all while his receivers are dropping passes at the 7th highest rate. He's doing this while throwing 35% of his targets to Rashad Bateman, Nelson Aguilar, and Justice Hill, and with 3 of his new starters along the offensive line. Jackson has, as a passer, is turning in a 44.7% passing attempt on first down this season, which is extremely rarefied air. Since 2000, the only guys to top that while starting each of their team's first 9 games are Tom Brady in 2007, Peyton Manning in 2013, Goff in 2018, Manning again in 2004, Matt Ryan in 2016. 4 of those 5 guys won MVPs in the season, and the season by Brady and Manning come up regularly when discussing the best years ever produced by a quarterback. So Bill Barnwell is saying Lamar Jackson is doing some things outside of his running ability, because that's going to King Henry right now when he's playing at an MVP level. Don't forget to leave your comments in there about what you think. Who are some of your coach of the year, defensive player of the year, offensive player of the year, and MVPs? And I'll end with this. Normally when I go the college route, I'm talking about my Tar Heels, which I will talk about my Tar Heels. Okay? Looking better. Still not satisfied with them. Basketball season is here. My Tar Heels take on Kansas this Friday. Let's go. But I'm going to go to a place where probably none of you think I'm going to go. But I'm going to head out and talk about UAB, the Blazers. And the reason I'm talking about UA, I got to give a shout out. Shout out to Trent Dilfer, head coach at UAB. But I got to give a shout out to my nephew. I got to give a shout out to the son of one of my really good friends. I got to give a shout out to now the school record holder for most touchdowns in a game, my nephew, Jalen Kitna. Now, some of you may say, name sounds familiar. That's right. He is the son of John Kitna. Now, before you go off and you're in my comments talking about, oh, this and that and what happened when he was at Florida, make sure you continue on in your Google search and see how it all panned out, because some of you are going to be like James Jones and be loud and be wrong. But shout out to my nephew. Big win for the UAB Blazers last week. Took over the starting job. Beat Tulsa 59-21. Jalen was 25 of 32 for 404 yards and set a school record with 6 touchdown passes. So, nephew, way to keep your head down, man. Way to keep going to work. Way to keep putting your faith and trust in your Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, blocking out all of the noise, not allowing people and things to put you down, just continuing to go into work. And he ended a 6-game losing streak that the Blazers had. So I got to give a shout out and I got to give a ton of love to Jalen Kitna. 6 touchdowns, 404 yards, and they put belt to tail on Tulsa 59-21. Nephew, I'm proud of you. I love you. Keep working hard. Continue to keep God first. Continue to prove the doubters wrong, and just do what you do. Congratulations to you, man. Congratulations to the Blazers. Jalen Kitna. Just remember that name. Remember that name. All right, man, that's it for me. I'm going to get up out of here, man. I appreciate you all for being here. Remember, like, subscribe, hit the notification button on YouTube, Fanatics Views on social media. Follow Unfiltered with Jesse Holley, at Mr. Fourth and Long. Leave your comments. Hit the 5 stars on that podcast, Apple and Spotify. If you see me in the street, say what's up. Ski-wee. No, don't do that. Remember, if you're not careful, you can start to think it's routine. Don't take special for granted. I appreciate you all. I love you. You matter. If you need help, ask for help. All right, remember, eliminate the contingencies. I'm out.